such an important conversation to have, isn't it? And the world feels like a really, really scary place at the moment. But just being a bit kinder to ourselves is a way to feel a little bit happier about life at the moment and a bit more positive.
No, absolutely. I mean, I just feel very, very lucky that I've still been able to go into work every day. And I think the feedback that we're getting from viewers is that it's very reassuring, to see me there and to see the guys from GMB and This Morning and all of the daytime shows, because it's actually lovely, because we sort of become people's friends, if you like, which is a huge honour and an amazing thing. But I think it's so, so important, more than ever before, that we actually show kindness to one another and also to ourselves. I mean, if we think back to those Thursdays when we were all applauding the NHS and we all felt that we were all together, and I think we've maybe lost a little bit of that, and we have to kind of hang on to that a bit more. And it's not like, kindness it's a strange one, because it doesn't have to be anything huge. It can just be little small things, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you're so right about how you guys have been like our friends every day, and you're like an anchor for us.
That's
and you're on screen every day sharing messages of positivity, and you are so kind. And I'm wondering, where does that come from?
I guess it's how you're brought up, isn't it, really? But also, I just have this thing. It's really, really old-fashioned. But my gran always said, it was that old thing, do as you would be done by. And actually, if everybody sort of took that on board, the world would be a far kinder place. But I also think things have changed a lot. And people realise, they're talking more about mental health, and they're talking more about problems that they've got, and not feeling that they've got to kind of somehow soldier on. That awful thing that people used to be told, to pull yourself together and soldier on, which is ridiculous. And I think now people have actually got a lot more empathy for one another. And I always think as well, especially with my show, I'm sort of inviting people into my house in a way. Yeah. And, you wouldn't treat, if you're asking people to come and see you, you're not going to treat them in a bad way. I mean, that's not to say that if somebody needs to be told something, because actually sometimes it's kind to tell people that they're out of order. If somebody's misbehaving, or somebody's being silly, or they're harming themselves and they might not even be aware of it, I think it's really important that the kind thing to do is actually almost to call them out. But it depends how you do it. You've got to do it in a way that is obviously with their best interests at heart. And that can be a really powerful thing as well. So, yeah, I mean, I just feel, like I say, very lucky to still be going into work. And we are now more than ever concentrating on positive things that people have done. We have little kids who are baking cakes and knitting and just doing, it seems like small, tiny things, but when you add it up, it's a mountain of kindness. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to point out at the moment that we do have a chat box on the screen. So if anyone we're here to answer any questions that you have. So if any of you have any questions, then do pop into the chat box and say hello. And we've also had some other questions sent in, so we'll get to those as well. And I was wondering, Lorraine, is there any particular act of kindness that was so huge that you will always remember?
Do you know what? It's funny you say that, because it is a small thing. I remember when, just after I had my daughter, and what it's like when you just had a baby and you're not feeling at your best, shall we say. And I really was. And obviously, you put weight on, for goodness sake. Of course you have. It's perfectly natural and normal. And, I was still wearing maternity clothes sort of 6 months later. And I was out with her in the pram, and somebody had stopped and said, "Oh, what a beautiful baby," obviously. And then they said to me, "Oh, and you're looking really well." Now, this woman clearly, I don't think I was, but do you know what? That made me feel so much better. She said, "Oh, you're looking really well, because, obviously it's really hard, and, having a baby, it's lovely, but it's really hard work." And it was just one mother to another in the high street, as we're going into the supermarket. Actually saying that just made me feel so much better. So I really do make a point, if I see somebody and they look fantastic, or they're looking good, or they're struggling a wee bit, just to say, "How are you doing? How are you? You all right?" Or, "Wow, you look amazing. That's incredible." You actually almost see people growing in height.
Absolutely. I do, because kindness is contagious. And you wrote about this in your book, and I really noticed that when I read it. this idea of just sharing a compliment, it just bolsters someone in their day, but it also makes you feel better. It makes you feel more powerful because you've given a gift, which is a really nice thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it does make you, yeah, it really does. I think that's the other thing you get. If you're kind to someone else, then I think it is like a ripple, isn't it? And they give it to someone else, and then you feel better yourself. For you, what's your kind of act of kindness that you always remember and that's kind of resonated with you?
Yeah, so when I think about kindness, I remember it's not always about what someone does. Sometimes it can just be about a way that somebody is. So when I was a teenager, I was a bullshit teenager and quite angry and maybe quite aggressive. And I always told people exactly what I thought of them, unfiltered. And remember I was at school once and I didn't like something that my teacher had done. And so I went up to her and I told her in a not very nice way because I was angry. Yeah. And she looked at me so kindly and she asked me, "Are you okay?" And it was so amazing in that moment that she was able to look beyond my behavior, because she could have, she was in her rights to give me detention, but she looked beyond that and she saw me as somebody who needed her kindness and her compassion. And it's 20 years ago now, but I still remember that. And when I can, I try to channel that for other people. So if someone is behaving in a way that is triggering for me, I try to wonder what's going on for you, and do you need my kindness and my compassion? And when I can, I give it to them. Sometimes it's not possible because you're not necessarily feeling in that place. So yeah, that's something that's really stuck with me.
And that's, again, that's, you have learned from that. And I think anybody listening to that, and we all know, and we've been in a situation where maybe we haven't behaved particularly well, or we're confronted by somebody who's not, whether it's in the workplace or wherever it may be. And actually just saying, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, such a nice thing to do. We've had a comment here.
Yeah, and then people just,
I always do this, but my teens then are like, "Mum, you're so extra, but worth it to make someone happy." That's about giving the compliment. Yes. I love that expression, "Mum, you're so extra."
But it's true, and it's really important to do that. And I also think what's really important too is to be a wee bit kinder to yourself, because we can be, especially really, really hard on ourselves, whether it's that we don't feel beautiful enough, we don't feel thin enough, we don't feel confident enough, all of these things that we do, and then we tend to put ourselves at the bottom of a very long list. There's the kids, husband or partner, then there's the pets, then there's the relatives, then there's the friends, and then there's you away at the bottom. There you are, away down the bottom, thinking, "Oh my goodness me," and just about coping. And I think sometimes actually you have to take some time out to just be kinder to yourself. And again, it can be something really small, that just sitting, with a biscuit and a cup of tea reading Hello. It can be that, it can be your guilty pleasure.
Absolutely.
Again, the heart of that magazine is kindness, which is so important, because an awful lot of other things aren't so kind. And I think that, again, that's just good for the soul, just to take 5 minutes to yourself, because you deserve it, and tell yourself that you deserve it, because you do.
And that was what I was going to ask you actually, Lorraine, because you have been Lorraine for all of my life. There literally hasn't been a weekday when I haven't been able to wake up and see your cheerful, smiling face, sending positive vibes out into the world. But you're only human. There must be days when you are unkind to yourself. Does that ever happen?
Oh, definitely. And there are some days, and there certainly has been in the past, where it has been a wee struggle, like all of us, even though I absolutely love my job, I love it. But, at the end of the day, it's a job, and the most important things in your life are your family and your pals. But there have been days when it has been quite tough. But then I always think of people who have gone through dreadful, dreadful times and still manage to come out of it with some sort of positivity. I was just recently doing a documentary in Dunblane because it's 25 years since the shootings there, and I was talking to some of the parents and the way that they have, obviously we'll never forget what happened, but the way that human beings are astonishing, and the way that they've managed to somehow build another life and be a bit kinder to themselves is truly remarkable and really humbling. And I think that when I'm always feeling a bit sort of like, oh gosh, I'm not sure, it's all getting a bit on top of me. We've all been like that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Especially now, I don't think there's one person in this country who hasn't woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning overwhelmed and thinking, I don't have control of this situation. Who would have thought would be in this situation? People that aren't able to see their family, not able to see their older relatives in care homes. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So we're all there, and I think it's okay to not be okay and to say, I'm having a wee struggle here.
Yeah.
But make sure you talk to somebody. Make sure that's about being kind to yourself, is actually just going to somebody that you trust, or a good friend, and just saying, do you know what, I'm struggling a bit, how are you? And then you can have that chat, and that's really, really important, because we've all been there. Every single one of us, has just felt anxious at this time. I mean, it's completely normal to feel like that. Of course it is.
Absolutely. There was so much in what you just said then, and I think the key message from that is that it's okay not to be okay, and it's also okay to ask for help when you need it, and that is being kind to yourself and knowing the people who love you and can support you, and asking for help is a way of being kind to yourself. But also there was something about, I love this idea of thinking about people who have overcome difficulties and understanding their stories of inspiration, because actually when you think about kindness and when you think about positivity, it creates happiness hormones in your brain, and it actually makes you happier. So that's why your show is so successful, and that's why Hello Magazine and this initiative is so successful, because when we think about kindness, it's good for us and it makes us happy.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you say the word kind and you smile, don't you?
Yes.
You just feel better. And things have really changed. I mean, when I think back to when I first started working in newspapers, it was a pretty toxic environment by and large, especially if you were a young girl. It was quite hard. And I've noticed, I've seen in my career how things have changed. And one of the huge things that I think has changed is there's a lot more women in charge. And women tend to be, there was a wee time when women felt they had to be more like men in order to succeed. I don't think that happens now. I don't think they pull up the ladder anymore. I think it's that thing of, extending a helping hand. And I know some people, sadly, still find that they're in a toxic environment where they work. But that is changing, and that has to change. I think because bosses and all of that set the tone, and they've got to set a much, much kinder tone and a much kinder environment for everybody, because that's when people thrive. That's when you get great ideas. That's when people bounce off one another. That's when people talk about important, interesting things, and they trust each other, and it just, all of these creativity just flowers. But people are scared and cowed.
Yeah.
But this is what bosses, they're not going to get the best out of their workforce. So I know there was a lot of people who were talking earlier on about working in an environment that was difficult. And I've never understood that, because if you're in charge of a situation, it doesn't matter what the work is, whether it's what I do or whether it's, working in a garage or whether it's working in a restaurant, both of which I've done. It just needs bosses to realise you get the best out of people if you're kind. And that doesn't mean that they walk all over you. Absolutely not. It's the exact opposite. You get more from people, much, much more from people. As my gran said, more with honey than vinegar, she says. You get better results with honey than vinegar. She's
honey than vinegar. That's brilliant. So would you have any advice for someone? Because I think you're so right. If you are in charge, if you're a leader, then leading with kindness is the answer. But if you don't feel like a leader and you're in a situation where there isn't a lot of kindness in your environment, would you have any advice to give in that scenario?
I think what you have to do, and right now it's really hard because work getting a job is really, really difficult. Of course it is. I do think it's about communication, and you will not be the only one feeling like that. You won't be. There'll be other people in work who are feeling exactly the same. Now, I don't mean that you form some sort of little cabal or anything, but actually it's a good idea to just talk to people that you trust, first of all, and see if they're feeling like that too. And if it's a massive organisation, you should go and see HR, because the thing is, this sort of behaviour is not tolerated anymore. It used to be. And I think a lot of people still think that it is. And they've got this feeling that they can't tackle the boss because they're frightened. But no. There's levels of behaviour that just aren't accepted anymore. And sometimes, and you'll be surprised, because I've seen it myself, and you'll be surprised how that can really change. And sometimes it's this thing of, if you tell someone, probably, I'd like to think that boss or that head of department or whatever they are doesn't actually know that they're being really horrible, that they don't actually know. Maybe if it's pointed out to them in the nicest possible way, and you don't have to do that, you can take it to the next level and get somebody else to do that for you. But what I would say is, don't put up with it, and don't be quiet about it, because that eats away at you, and you're not doing yourself any good at all. And the stress and the strain and the anxiety is just not good for you. Absolutely not. It's that thing of talking. It doesn't matter what situation it is, you've actually got to talk to one another.
I think you also made another really good point there, which is that negative feelings actually hurt you just as much as they hurt the other person. So if you can, try to let go of those negative feelings and forgive. And if you can't, then I think it's important to get out of that kind of scenario.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I did a series on forgiveness, and the power of forgiveness is remarkable. I mean, it's people had done terrible things to them, but they said when they actually forgave, the power came back to them. It was quite remarkable. It really was, even in situations where, they've been in the worst possible that you could imagine, and they've said, no, I'm going to forgive this person. I'm not going to let them have control over my life anymore, because it's damaging to me. And that was remarkable. I'll never forget some of the stories, because they were quite extraordinary. There was one man whose daughter very sadly had been killed, and he forgave the person who did that. Now, I don't know if I could do that. I really don't. And nobody wants to be in that situation. But he said it was the best thing that he ever did, because he was able to get on with his life. Never forget. And somehow live with it. But he was able then, he just felt as if this person isn't dragging me under anymore. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about him taking the power back for himself, because that was something that he could do. It was in his power to forgive. Shall we open it up and encourage people to ask some questions? We've had some sent in, and also if you are on this Zoom call, then please do send some through. Shall I read one out at the moment? Okay, here's one. I've been suffering from panic attacks and struggle to be kind to myself. I feel completely beaten down by them. Do you have any advice?
First of all, fantastic that you've actually got in touch, because that's the first step, isn't it? That's the first step, is recognising it. You've got to try and get some help. I know it's difficult right now. If you feel that you can't really talk to someone, or sometimes people still feel they shouldn't, but they still feel a little bit, I shouldn't be talking about this. Your GP, honestly, I know that we keep hearing they're snowed under, but actually an awful lot of them are doing Zoom calls right now. Make sure that you talk to somebody. Because you don't have to put up with this. You really, really don't. But do bear in mind that so many people feel exactly the same. You're absolutely not alone. So many people are feeling like this. It's quite natural to feel anxious, but we don't want you having panic attacks. That's not great. And there's lots of things that can be done. So you shouldn't be sitting there suffering. Make sure you get some proper expert help before it tips over and it gets worse. But you've made the first step by getting in touch with us. That's brilliant. Brilliant. Well done.
I completely agree. I think it's so important to reach out and ask for help. One of the things that happens when you have a panic attack, or when you have anxiety at all, is that there's another layer that goes on top of that. And that is frustration at yourself at experiencing this, but also there's a lot of shame around it.
I know that, which there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. We're getting better, but there still is, especially with an older generation, you know, sort of my generation. I still have got that, oh, you know, you have to have a stiff upper lip and it's all that pull yourself together nonsense. And we've got to get over that because it doesn't do anybody any good at all.
Yeah, and so when you're feeling that in the moment, and you are sometimes you're overcome with that feeling of shame and panic, and oh no, I can't believe this is happening again, and this is going to be so embarrassing because it's in front of people. Something that I always do with my clients is I get them to put their hand on their heart, and I ask them to say, even though I'm experiencing this at the moment, I love and accept myself anyway. And just by offering yourself that compassion, and those words, even though, is so important at releasing that layer of fear and that layer of shame so that you can actually deal with the panic.
That's a really brilliant idea. I love that.
It just brings you back. Back down to earth, back into the present. Okay, we have got another one here. How do you stop expecting others to act in a kind way like you would, and therefore stop being disappointed when they don't?
Oh dear, that's a really, really difficult one, isn't it? I do actually think though, that if you do a kind act, if it gets thrown back at you, that's a real shame, but it's not your problem. You know, you're not the one that should be beating yourself up about it. It's their problem, not yours. And I honestly do believe that 9 times out of 10, if you do something kind for someone, they will be very appreciative, and then they will pass it on. They will pass it on for sure. So yeah, don't think about being disappointed. Concentrate on the people that actually said thank you and said thank you so much for being kind. Don't concentrate on the negativity at all. Just but don't expect people to always say thank you so much or whatever. Just put it out there and then see what happens. And don't have expectations, because that, some people just won't be that nice, sadly.
Yeah, but that's true.
Again, that's your problem. That's not your problem, that's their problem.
I think that's very true. And there's also something about kindness, which is that it really should be for its own sake. It shouldn't be to get something back. It should be is its own reward. So, exactly. And I think it's an opportunity to lead with kindness. It's an opportunity to model kindness and to feel good about yourself, because you know that you're a kind person. And as you say, if someone isn't in a position where they're able to be kind, then I think there again adds some curiosity, and just say, I wonder, without spending too much time thinking about them, I wonder what's going on in their life that means that they're not able to be kind at this moment. And then, as you say, just move on. Okay, we've had some from the Albright chat. So how many chances would you give a person? My case is ex-partner who has alcoholic issues, and I'm wondering if I should go back to him or not. Lorraine.
Oh, that's a really, really difficult one. If there's any sort of hint of any sort of unacceptable behaviour, then no, I don't think you can. And by unacceptable behaviour, obviously, I mean if you get or psychologically abused, physically abused, no, absolutely not. I think that's a really difficult one, because it depends on the situation, and I don't know the ins and outs of the situation. I think, though, you have to give people a chance to show that their behaviour has changed. Sometimes it's that thing of the kind thing. Sometimes is say, okay, I'm not enabling it anymore, and I'm going to walk away from this now, and you come back to me when you are better and when you have sorted yourself out, because actually I can't do it for you anymore. And that's hard. That's really, really hard to do, but sometimes that's the kindest thing to do. So I think it depends how many times you've been down or how many times you've been disappointed. And if it's like a circle, it just keeps happening. I think sometimes you've got to break that, and then you've just got to say, I've done all I can. I've done all this. If this affects you, especially affecting your happiness and your well-being, then you can't. You just can't keep say to somebody, okay, I forgive you, but I would give, a couple of chances for sure. What you don't want to do is get into, you've seen this before, Rosie, getting into that sort of situation where you're enabling this behaviour. That's the worst thing you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's not kind, is it?
No, it's not. You think it is. You probably think you're doing the best thing, but you're maybe not.
Yeah, I think given the tone of this question, I think that you know the answer. That's my suspicion. And I think it's a real opportunity for you to take some time to look after yourself and assess, because I think it's probably quite damaging to be in a relationship like that. And so it's a time for you to heal. And then you need to ask yourself the question, what would someone who loves themselves do? And I think there you will get your answer, because you may love him. I'm sure you do love him, but you have to love yourself more. And that's where you're going to get your answer, as hard as it is. Okay, we've got another. This is a lovely question. I'm starting a new job and I would love to shine and be the best me, especially in front of my new boss who is expecting good things. I'm super worried about reaching out for help if I need to, in case they regret hiring me. What is your advice?
Oh, actually, hate to ask for help. If you're the new person, I just think if you're the new person in any job, you've got to be super, super excited, but also really, really helpful. It's that thing of, I always say to anybody that comes into us, especially if they're starting off as a runner and running around and, and working me up, I always ask what you can do. Is there anything I can do? And if you don't understand something, please ask, because people would much, much rather you ask than you going away and trying to do it and then getting yourself in a tizzy and then maybe not doing it quite right. I think, to be honest with you, with that sort of attitude, the way that question is framed, you are going to be absolutely fine, because you're already aware of what you have to do in that situation. So I think you'll be absolutely fine. Just be enthusiastic, just, be helpful, just soak everything up like a sponge. It's okay to ask questions. And the worst thing is not, you want to get as much experience and as much information as you can, but it's all about being curious, being interested, being switched on, and looking like you really want to be there as well, which of course you do.
Yeah, I love that. And also, I think you have to realize the value that you are bringing at that moment. So you are not walking in as somebody who's been in that company for 10 years. You are walking in as someone who is a new person with fresh energy and fresh ideas and fresh eyes and fresh questions. And that is the value that you bring. So don't expect that they're expecting something else, because they've hired you for good reason. So I think, as you say, Lorraine, the way that question was phrased suggests that this person's very conscientious and is going to be
just
yeah. Okay, let's have another one. Okay, as a mum, how can you be kind to yourself without taking away from your family?
Gosh, I think, to be honest with you, I think you'll take things away from your family if you're not kind to yourself, because if you don't have a little bit of time for you, or you don't sometimes just, and I mean, I'm terrible because I am the worst person not to do all of these things. I mean, I sometimes buy like nice bubble bath and I think, oh, this will be good. And then it just sits there and you have to actually use it. You have to use nice cream in your face and nice things, because it's not going to work by osmosis, So I think actually, in order for your family to thrive, you have to be happy and you have to be contented, and you have to take a little bit more care of yourself and look after yourself. So do not feel guilty if you're having that bubble bath and lighting a couple of gorgeous candles, or if you can, or even, like I say, just sitting for 5 minutes reading your favourite magazine. That's what you need to do. You cannot keep all the time, because what you'll do is you will get stressed and you will get anxious and you'll take that out on your family. You'll get ratty, and nobody wants that. So you have to kind of just, it's a balance thing, isn't it, Rosie? It's a balance thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have to remember that putting yourself to the top of the list is not only the best thing for you, but it's the best thing for everyone else around you. And just remembering that is the most important thing. Because if you do it with guilt, if you have your bubble bath with guilt, you're not going to get the benefit from it. No. If you go out for a walk by yourself and feel guilty the whole time, then what was the point?
Yes.
And I think also we are a society that really values good judgment at the moment. But I wish that we could put a bit more value on suspending judgment, because when you are able to suspend your judgment, that opens the door to possibility and opportunity and curiosity. So expecting that if you take away from your, if you spend time by yourself, you're taking away from your family, that's the judgment. But if you can say, I wonder what would happen if I was to take a bit of time for myself, then you would see the possibilities.
Definitely, of course. Yeah, and don't feel guilty about it at all.
Okay, we've probably got time for one more question. So let's have a look. Okay, it's so important to be kind and supportive of others, and it feels so good when you do, but I worry that by supporting others, I will disappear. Is that selfish? I think that's
that's not selfish at all. That's very astute, and actually something that I think we all have to bear in mind, because if you're always on transmit and not receive, you're going to run on empty, aren't you? You're going to actually find yourself utterly exhausted, and we've all felt like that at one time or another, especially at this time in our lives, and we're all feeling the strain and everything. And I don't think that's bad at all. I think we all know our limit. I think we all know when we've just got to sort of say, look, okay, it's not that I don't want to help you, it's not that I don't want to hear it, but just maybe not now, I will get back to you. It's actually all right. Again, okay, but we're so bad at doing that, aren't we? We're so, we really aren't very good at sort of going, I mean, I am the worst at saying no. It's only recently that I've actually said, I'm really sorry, I can't actually do that. And do you know what, Rosie? It was okay. I thought people are not going to like me, or they're going to say, oh no, well, she's horrible. They actually went, oh yeah, I totally understand, no problem at all. We'll get back to you in a few months, or we'll get back to you. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. So sometimes people are actually much more forgiving and understanding than you would think. And if you're not in a great place, it's actually okay to say, that I've said a couple of times just over the past couple of weeks, I'm really sorry, I'm snowed under, and I would love to help this charity, or I would love to help your cause. I just can't do it right at this very moment, but get back to me and I will, I'll sort it and it'll be fine. And I found it really hard to do that, actually. And they were like, oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem at all. We're all still going to be here. Everyone's, we're still going to need help in the next few weeks or months or years. We will get back, and thank you for all the help that you've done before. And I was like, oh, okay. That's good. And it made me feel a lot better, actually, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you've somehow let someone down, or you're not doing as much as you possibly can. But sometimes there's just not enough hours in the day, and you just at that time you can't do it. And that's all.
Do you know, it's so refreshing to hear you talking like that, Lorraine, because we, as I say, we all see you and you're so positive, but you also look so confident and sure of yourself. So to know that you have the same worries as all of us, that if you say no, people aren't going to like you, that's very refreshing for all of us to hear. But it's also really good to know that you've tried it and it was okay.
It was all right, and I couldn't believe it. And then I thought, it's actually fine. Okay, I mean, I don't feel like a particularly confident person. I think as you get older, I mean, for goodness sake, I'm 61 at the end of this month, which I say that to, can't believe it. I feel about 18 in my head. But well, It's only as you get a little bit older, I think, that you sometimes with age you do become a little bit kinder to yourself, because sometimes you've learned the hard way, or you just think, do you know what, this is my time now. And I know a lot of women who, particularly if they're going through the menopause, or they're either going through it or through it, sort of say, this is my time now. And a lot of us, unfortunately, have, like, if you do have younger children and then you've got older parents and you're the wee sandwich filling, that's very, very, very difficult. And that's when you really have to take some time to yourself and make sure that you don't disappear, as our last question said, because I know what she means by that, I really do. But it really is, I mean, honestly, we've got to be kinder to one another, but also kinder to ourselves as well. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? And it actually is. It's just getting into that mindset and thinking, you know, it's...
Kindness is also a practice, isn't it? I think that's the thing. It's remembering to be kind to yourself and trying to do it every day. And a little practice that I do with my daughter every night, we have our pick of 3 different questions. And it's either, what are you thankful for today? Or what are you proud of today? Or what is a kindness that has happened today? And it can either be something that you did for someone else or that someone else did for you. And it never fails to raise a smile from us. And it's the most lovely feeling. So it's a really nice thing to do. And I highly recommend that.
That's a brilliant thing to do. I really like that, because like today, I know it sounds mad, but Mark Hayes brought in these little masks, because, you know, obviously all masks, and he brought in these little masks for everyone, and they had like sequins on them, like Strictly Come Dancing sequins.
Oh,
they were the silliest things, and they were really funny, and everybody just felt so much better. I mean, he's like Santa Claus, he's brilliant. So he was given these out. I mean, they were all sealed up and everything was all safe and everything like that. But it was just lovely, and I will definitely wear that. And if I saw somebody in the street wearing a sequined mask, it would make me smile. And Dr. Hillary, he's got a brilliant one. He's got a big blue mask, and it actually says the word smile on it.
Oh, brilliant. And you can't fail to smile, can you?
Yeah, you smile. Well, you smile at Dr. Hillary anyway, but you smile doubly when you see that. But we're all having to wear masks and work until we get into the studio and sit down, and then we can take our masks off. But his one, I just think, is great. And some people have got big grins on their face and all of that. I just think it just makes me laugh, and it's funny, and it's just, why not? Why not?
Amazing. Well, Lorraine, thank you so much for talking to me today. It has really been the most lovely, positive experience. It's been so gorgeous. And hasn't it been great to be part of the Hello to Kindness Summit?
I love it. I love it. I've got my necklace on as well, my lovely kindness necklace, which is beautiful. I love that. And also, I just love to be part of something where kindness it's very much like what our show is like. And Hello has got that in their DNA, you know, really be kind. And I've always been like that, even when it wasn't very fashionable, you know, because there was a time when people were a bit more smart and smarty pants and all of that, and right on and everything, and that's gone now, so that's good. And being kind is how we should all be, everybody.
I think that is a perfect place to say thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching, and happy World Kindness Day.
Oh, thank you, Rosie. Thank you so much.